talking The Wind Walker. This one is directed by Tom Chaney, and it stars Eric Roberts, or at least that's what it will say, but he's only in actually 2 scenes, to be honest with you. It actually has the main character here played by David G.B. Brown as Jack Vincent Jr., who is actually on IMDb co-credited as the writer or co-writer here. And he plays a character who is an author who has written a series of best-selling books, and his father used to be sort of a author slash kind of Indiana Jones style archaeologist who was lost when he was a child. And he happens across a map from his father and some kind of some manuscripts and stuff, and decides that he wants to go and investigate. His publisher, played by good old Eric, decides that he wants to kind of him to turn it into a book, and therefore kind of like sends like a film crew with him. And thus begins the adventure when they discover there may be something supernatural here involving this kind of Native American legend about these kind of 2 mythical warriors, so to speak, mythical brothers who are one good, one evil, etc. And the evil one, of course, being the demonic wind force. Anyway, that's pretty much your synopsis there. Let's discuss. So, what works first of all? This is I really use the word horror film loosely here, because it really does feel more of a family horror film, if that makes sense. This is the sort of thing you would see in like a Goosebumps. I suppose it falls under the horror genre, but obviously for a very young audience, because there's no real. There's one sequence which I guess is a little scary when we have these teenagers in this tent, but other than that, there's not a lot of. There's not really no horror here. There's no gore. There's no real scares and things like that. Other than that, maybe that one sequence, and everything is done to a cartoonish level, so to speak. Now, so if you are a younger person, or you got kids who are wanting to watch horror films, this is a relatively kind of safe one to them to watch, because it's not going to sort of offend anyone. And it also it almost reminds me of like the National Treasure type movies. This kind of swashbuckling Indiana Jones style kind of adventure film to a certain degree. So really the first half of the movie is kind of that. It's more of the setup, and it's an interesting idea. I actually quite liked the guy's agent. I thought he was a great sort of comedy character, and actually gave a real likeable performance here as this unwilling agent who has to go along with him because the publisher says so. I thought was good. The introduction of this kind of like these 3 teens who are meant to be documenting it as well. I almost feel like it was reshoots, but it actually gave it an excuse to have just a higher kind of like members of a body count, really, and hire more people to kind of this creature to play with. And then we get to our climax. There is it goes all out special effects, and there are some pretty interesting kind of creature designs here, I will say. And there's a smackdown between 2 forces, and it's low budget special effects. But I actually really dug the creature design here, and I actually thought they looked pretty good. And if I were like a young, I would be thinking this was like kick-ass cool, I have to say. On the negatives for me, I gotta say, I think our main actor is a little bland, unfortunately. Now I believe he's the co-screenwriter and has cast himself, but he is somewhat of a bland character, unfortunately. And his performance isn't necessarily bad, but it's just. He doesn't really feel like a real like a fleshed out character, and just like this good dad and all of this, and it's very kind of like humdrum. Doesn't ever really feel like a kind of a real character. If you look at the agent, however, who gets a lot less screen time, he actually has a lot more character in him. Now, on the subject of special effects, there is a big use of very cheap video effects, green screen, CGI here, that really will detract, I think, the most pleasure from the viewers here. Unless you are a kid and don't care about things like this, we are looking at PlayStation 2 level graphics and some of the kind of like the visual effects here. It is terribly bad. There's also some poor choice in regards to when they've been shooting outside. We're meant to believe there's a storm coming, and we have this kind of this demonic wind that sort of turns up. But they've shot in bright, sunny outdoor scenes when they, to really get the idea of that there's a storm coming. Maybe you should have shot a little bit later in the day, or when it's a little bit more overcast, because it looks a little bit too fake at times. The other thing I would say is the movie has way too much setup. The actual plot doesn't really get started until past the halfway mark, to be honest. And the movie just spends way too long setting this up. And it could have done, the first act, the first 30 minutes, 25 minutes, I feel that could have been condensed down, and you can have a lot more time sort of fleshed out for the actual story to actually start, really, because it just spends way too long setting it up. And I got the feeling that's maybe because they wanted to have the Eric Roberts scenes in. But nonetheless, even outside of those scenes, there's just a hell of a lot of setup with the family and stuff like that. And it could have been trimmed down to make it a more punchy film. Overall, it's just an okay kind of time waster. It's not going to appeal to hardcore horror fans, but I do think there is a market maybe for if you want to let your kids watch kind of like a quote-unquote horror film that is relatively easygoing. I am quite liking the designs of the creatures, though. That's something that I thought was actually quite impressive. It's a shame they just shrouded it in a load of CGI crap, to be honest. Anyway, I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.